Welcome to Retail's Most Wanted, the podcast that examines the latest issues related to organized retail crime and how retailers and policymakers are fighting back against today's organized crime syndicates. I'm your host, Marty Carpenter, and coming up on today's show, a rare bit of positive news in organized retail crime, as we'll be joined by Greg Totten, who is the president of the California District Attorneys Association. We're going to talk to him about the path they took to pass Prop 36 and the changes that are coming in California because of that. Great conversation. We're going to have that right after this word from our sponsor. Retail's Most Wanted is brought to you in partnership with LVT, securing physical environments through intelligent automation. Learn more at lvt.com. That's lvt.com. Greg Totten has been the CEO of the California District Attorneys Association since 2021 after retiring from an 18-year stint as the elected district attorney of Ventura County, California. Now, during his 38-year career as a prosecutor, Mr. Totten led several prominent law organizations as well as lecturing and publishing on a wide array of criminal justice topics. But he's here today to talk about a really big win that I think you're probably still just basking in the glory of at this point, I would think, Greg. Tell me how you're feeling after the passage of Proposition 36.
Well, we were delighted, and when I say we, I speak for California's prosecutors, law enforcement, and crime victims, and our retail industry, small and large business. We're all delighted with the vote on November 5th that overwhelmingly approved Proposition 36. This initiative was approved in more than a landslide. Nearly 70% of the California electorate supported Proposition 36. It passed in every single county in the state of California, so it was wildly popular. And now we're not really basking in the glory. We're diligently moving forward and implementing this important public policy change.
So let's give everyone some context to make sure that we're all on the same page. Proposition 47, give us a little bit of the history there. It passed when and what happened as a result of that made 36 necessary, and just maybe a little bit about the political situation in California that said, all right, this is the only way to go fix. The only way to undo 47 is to do 36.
Sure. Proposition 47 was approved by the voters in 2014, so 10 years ago. That initiative was sold to the California electorate as the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, which really was a misstatement in terms of its purposes and its contents. What that initiative did is it took virtually all theft offenses, particularly retail theft, and converted those offenses, no matter how often a person committed it, all of those offenses became misdemeanors so long as the individual stole less than $950. So, for example, a career criminal could literally go into the same store every day for a month, and as long as he stole less than $950 on each one of those occasions, every one of them would be treated as a misdemeanor. So that was a major change of Proposition 47. It's had disastrous consequences for both law enforcement and the retail industry. Another provision in that initiative also took narcotics offenses, possession of hard drugs like cocaine, heroin, fentanyl, methamphetamine, and converted those offenses to misdemeanors as well. We had historically used the overlay of a felony consequence for possession of hard drugs to encourage people to go into treatment. Once you took away that incentive, frankly, what happened is treatment programs started drying up because there was no demand for them. So we had these problems that were coalescing into a significant issue for retailers, large and small, and they had career criminals basically engaged in open lawlessness, stealing all the time from retailers. But concurrently, you also had individuals who were chronically homeless, who suffered from serious drug issues, who were stealing to support their habits. So the net effect of those two major changes in Proposition 47 had very significant consequences for law enforcement, for our court system, but most importantly, for the retail industry.
You mentioned that this passed with 70% of the vote statewide and that it won in every county in California. Just with the political background, I would say that in order for that to happen, this clearly wasn't just seen by the public as, well, this is hurting small business. this had to agitate the public as they saw this type of criminal behavior at such a level that you get those kind of numbers. Like that's not what you get when it's just impacting business. That's when it's starting to impact the general public. Am I right there?
You're absolutely right. Consumers were also impacted by this. They saw prices go up. Retailers have to address this issue when they're losing tremendous amounts of goods due to theft. But they also saw products locked up. They saw increased difficulty in going to just a basic store and buying something like diapers, detergent, you name it. Basic everyday products became more difficult to purchase. But they also witnessed theft. You literally couldn't turn on a news program in the morning or in the evening and not see examples of these takeover thefts that were plaguing our communities throughout California.
And I imagine, again, just to keep it kind of in a political term, your best yard sign was that more and more people every day had been in a situation where they'd seen someone come into the store and just walk out. And at some point, if you're not one of those people, you start to feel, I would imagine, almost like the sucker for paying for the goods when everybody else is just walking out of the store with them.
Correct. And I think consumers also, in many areas, felt less safe. When you go to shop, you don't expect to be confronted by thieves. You don't expect to see people run into a store with a large trash bag and start pulling products off of a shelf. When that occurs, you feel less safe in that environment. So from our perspective, as prosecutors, and I think frontline police officers had the same concerns, we saw consumers at greater risk. We saw associates in stores at greater risk. And some of the most significant impacts were the small businesses, where they literally had, mobs of people coming into a 7-Eleven, for example, and stealing everything they could in the space of 60 to 90 seconds. And that's a pretty frightening experience for an average consumer or an average worker in the store.
I think we all have seen the videos where people would go in and just take whatever they wanted and sort of walk out of the store with a cart full of goods or bags full of goods. Interestingly, since this passed, I've already started to see videos of, it feels like, the same people, maybe it's not the exact same person, but people who are trying to do the same thing, who maybe don't follow the news quite as closely and didn't realize that their activities were now once again going to be treated as they should, as crimes, and they're leaving the store and they're being arrested and charged with a felony. And there's almost surprise, it's like I've seen one where one criminal they both got arrested, they're in the back of the police car, and one lady turns to the other and says, well, this is a felony now. And so I wonder if have you seen things like that? Is it a big deterrent? And do you feel like the word is going to spread through that community as quickly that they can no longer do this and get away with it, as it perhaps did that, hey, you can do this and get away with it?
I think a lot of those videos are going viral, and the repeat offenders are seeing them as well. The fact that people are now being arrested for this, I know I've spoken with a number of small business operators who, I was explaining to them how we're going to implement it and that it's going to take time. And they said, Greg, it's already having an impact. I already see it in my day-to-day operation in the store. So we think it's already moving in a positive direction, but clearly we have a great deal of work yet to be done.
Does Proposition 36 just undo 47, or was there anything that was like additional to that? Is it just sort of like a repeal of 47, or a repeal of 47 plus a change in areas A, B, and C?
It was an amendment of Proposition 47. It was not a repeal. There are some provisions in Proposition 47 that remain in effect, but it was a thoughtful amendment that focused on the nucleus of the problem, as one of my colleagues likes to say, which is repeat theft. Sending a message to people, if you repeatedly steal, you're going to be held accountable for a felony. So we amended Proposition 47 so that an individual who steals on their third conviction faces felony consequences. We also added some provisions. You've probably seen some of the video of these smash and grab events where a crew comes into a high-end store like a Nordstrom's in Los Angeles and steals $300,000 worth of high-end bags in the space of 90 seconds. we added provisions to make that not only a felony, but also enhance that sentence because of the value of the property that was stolen. And then we additionally had an enhancement for people who are acting in concert. When you get 3 or more people working together committing a crime, it's by definition more dangerous and more grave. And so we've enhanced the consequences for that as well.
It sounds like with Proposition 47, maybe the point that this has all come to is there was some legitimately good intention, but with a massive blind spot for what the obvious potential consequences were going to be. And with this effort with Proposition 36, you've tried to change the ones that were those most impactful blind spots where trouble really occurred. And you mentioned this a minute ago, and I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about it. This idea of like addressing chronic homelessness and drug addiction by making sure that law enforcement and prosecutors have sort of have leverage to help people go get the help they need when they're in violation of this. Was that an important part to make sure that the public supported what you were doing with 36 to say, we're going to keep we're going to keep the good intentions of this, but we're going to address what was the massive blind spot that got us into trouble?
Yeah, I think part of the motivation for Proposition 47 was treatment. That was one of the stated goals of Proposition 47, but the reality and in practice, what it did is it actually reduced treatment because it took away the incentive to go into treatment. So it was a very vitally important part of our initiative. I think there's a false perception out there that law enforcement and prosecutors just want to incarcerate drug addicts. Nothing could be further from the truth. Our goal is to motivate them into treatment so they change their behavior and they become law-abiding citizens rather than addicts who are living in utter squalor on our streets and really facing very difficult circumstances largely because of their addiction. We want to get those individuals the help they need. It's not a good use of scarce law enforcement resources, of scarce jail bed space to incarcerate them. But the reality is, unless they face a consequence that is serious, we've had drug addict after drug addict tell us, look, until I was looking at a felony, I had no interest in getting help for my drug issues. Once they started looking at more serious consequences, they will motivate you to go into treatment. And that's a big part of our goal.
You mentioned that retailers have told you, hey, we're already seeing a difference. But California is a big state, and maybe not every small business owner or retailer in the entire state follows this closely. What do you have to do as far as public education to make sure, on one hand, that the businesses understand, hey, this is what the policy changes have been, and where now you don't need to price everything at $951 and give a discount at the register. And on the other hand, how do you get the word out to those who may have been taking advantage of Proposition 47 and say, hey, it's a new day, so that they don't necessarily have to find out about it once they're ready to be charged with a felony? Because you'd like to prevent it.
Great question. And speaking first to the retailers, one of the wonderful side benefits of this whole initiative was our ability to develop a partnership and a collaboration with retailers, both large and small. I mean, companies like Walmart, Home Depot, Target, small business franchisees. Many of those businesses are operating by new immigrants to the United States, and they're struggling to find that American dream, and theft is impacting them mightily. So we develop partnerships with those so that we as prosecutors better understand their business, and also so they understand our needs. And going forward, we want that collaboration. We want that coalition, that partnership to continue. So from a retailer's perspective, I think many retailers made probably what was then a wise business decision with Proposition 47 that was both cost-based and risk management-based. They knew that if they had their employees detain someone, and there was not going to be any significant consequence, it created a safety issue for the employee that was doing the detention. It created a risk management issue for them, both as to the person detained as well as their own employees. And so many retailers made, I think, well, we don't like it in law enforcement. I think they made decisions that were based in the best interest of their companies and reduced their interdiction of fees. Our hope now is to reassure them, to help train them, to implement this law in a way that's going to better protect their businesses, their customers, and their employees. And so we want them to start engaging, and we want them to identify those people that are the most active perpetrators of these crimes, and then work with us to ensure, number one, they get arrested. They don't simply get a ticket as they were getting under Proposition 47. And that secondly, they are prosecuted for the full extent of what they've engaged in. We want to work in partnership with law enforcement and retailers to make this a success. Secondly, speaking to those individuals who have kind of unfortunately felt like it was open season on retailers, some of whom we're seeing now in videos saying, wait a minute, can't you cite and release me? Why do you have to arrest me? We want them to get the message that if they continue to engage in this conduct, they're facing felony consequences and they are going to be held accountable. And if their conduct is serious enough, they could potentially wind up in state prison. Deterrence is a big part of our criminal justice system, deterring people from engaging in criminal conduct, particularly repeated criminal conduct. That's what Proposition 36 seeks to do. And we're doing everything we can to get the message out. We held a very large meeting down in Los Angeles in December, where we had representatives of all of the different parts of the coalition that advanced Proposition 36 start the dialogue in terms of how we're going to implement it, how we're going to collect data regarding our success and our effectiveness in the implementation, and how we move this thing forward as responsibly and as strategically as possible.
Did this need to pass with just a simple majority, 50% plus one, so it didn't have to go 2/3? So knowing that, I'm going to ask kind of a political question here, is like on the political science side, if you knew that you had essentially 19 percentage points to play with, where you could say, hey, I could get this passed with a little bit less support, is there anything you would have added to Prop 36 to say, oh, we probably could have won it and included this provision or this provision? Or do you think you just struck the right balance?
I think we struck the right balance. California is a very blue state, and we had to be mindful of that in what we crafted. And we wanted to do something as responsible as possible and also reflective of the demographics of California and the makeup of our electorate. And the initiative was drafted in a way that it addressed a major problem that obviously now with the vote, we know Californians were concerned about. To have added in other measures would have gotten off of the subject matter of the initiative itself. We wanted it to be very logical and very easy to explain.
I would imagine that the lesson for other states is, measure twice, cut once. But is there anything else that you would say, hey, if your counterpart in Tennessee had a similar problem, or some other state had a similar problem, what have you learned through this process that you would say, here's something states should know before they either do something similar to 47 or when they face the uphill climb of getting something like Proposition 36 passed?
I think, so I've been around, as you can tell, a very long time in the prosecution community, and I've seen wide swings in public policy, from very, get tough, lock them up laws to what we've experienced over the last decade in terms of a move of criminal justice reform that has weakened the tools that we use and to some degree endangered the public. It's had some good components to it, but it's been largely damaging to public safety and our justice system. I think the lesson to be learned by other states is, rather than engage in these wide swings, Proposition 36 was very much a centrist. It was a move back towards the center. It wasn't an extreme swing. It was a thoughtful move towards the center. I think when you're looking at public policy and you're looking at something that requires the voters to approve it, you need to evaluate whether a movement back towards the center is going to receive more support of your electorate and the infrastructure of the state. We have tremendous support among elected officials as well. And so that's the one piece of advice I would give to other states. I guess the second piece of advice is don't follow California in enacting Proposition 47. Those things have been very, very damaging to California, to Californians, and to our business infrastructure.
All right, I'm going to get you out of here on this. There's a victory that comes, and I was sort of joking with you off the top of our discussion today. There's the electoral victory of saying, all right, we've got this policy that's been adopted by the people. And then there's the policy implementation of that and actually seeing the results of that policy come to fruition. So as you look a year, 2, 5 years down the road, in your mind, what says, hey, passing 36 was worth it and was the right move because we can see X?
Yeah, well, first of all, we're engaged in serious work on the implementation. We have one training program that we put on for prosecutors. We had nearly 1,000 prosecutors attend that training program, so there was great interest in it. But our measure of success is going to be, have we impacted retail theft? Do small businesses tell me they feel like they're safer now? They're losing less goods to theft. Do large retailers, the Walmarts, the Targets, the Home Depots of this world, do they feel that their bottom line has been positively impacted, that the safety of their consumers, the safety of their customer, of their associates has been increased? So a measure of retail theft and what's happened. Then we also will look at this issue of homelessness. Are we getting more people into treatment? Are we getting more people off the street? There's a housing issue, but there's also a drug addiction issue. So if we can fully measure those increases in treatment and reductions in theft, we will view it as a tremendous success. There's a third component of the initiative that I haven't mentioned up to now, and that's fentanyl. It's literally a poison that is being mixed into drugs that are sold on the street that's killing thousands of people every year here in California and throughout the nation. We deal with that as well. And so to the extent that we can see a reduction in the scourge of this fentanyl epidemic, we would be satisfied with that as well.
Well, the man who deserves every discount he gets in any retail establishment from now until the end of his life, anywhere in California. Greg Totten, thanks so much for coming back on the show. Congratulations again on the effort with Proposition 36, and thanks so much for giving us an update. We really appreciate it. We'd love to talk to you more about it as it gets implemented and we see more of these changes coming in California.
Thank you. I just want to emphasize it was a team effort. I was just one member of a big team.
They all get a discount then. Everybody gets discounts for everyone. Not the five-finger kind, but the regular kind. So, Greg, thanks so much. We appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's it for this episode of Retail's Most Wanted. Thanks to our presenting sponsor, as always, LVT. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button so you can catch each new episode. We drop one every 2 weeks. You can also find us on X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Links for all of that in the show notes below. Thanks for being with us, everyone, and as always, keep up the good fight.